underneath your hips. Ooh, that spoke to me. And then the tops of the feet are pressing down. Armpits, once again, our elbows wrapping down, wrapping behind you. Cool. And I always like to take some fidgets or sways to get into any pose. So feel free to do whatever you need to do to feel most comfortable and where we're going. And then we're going to take some cats and cows, inhaling as you arch and exhaling as you round. Inhale and exhale, allowing your chest to move through your arms. Collarbone begins to open. I'm already sweating. I don't know about you. And still find all of the pieces that you were finding in your down dog in this all fours position. So the weight is mostly in the thumb knuckle side of your hand. You have energy shooting out through all the fingertips. You're strongly pressing down through the hands. Tops of the feet are pressing down. Knees are still bent. And then keep going and see if you can go a little bit faster. So making it kind of like a breathwork exercise. Match your breath to each movement. Seeing if you can go faster. Pressing down through all limbs so you have movement to move around. Like with anything in life, you always build a foundation first, as if you're building a house. So we're rooting down with our hands and our feet and our knees so that in our upper body, we can have beautiful interior design and get fun paintings and couches and lamps and all that good stuff. Because without a good foundation, we could have nothing inside it because everything would collapse. So our arms and our legs are holding us up at two beautiful 90-degree angles, the archetype of a table. And then take the cats and cows a little bit slower, trying all different speeds, opening up the spine. And like I said in the beginning, always good to take breaks. And something else that we like to do in Katona is look at what other people are doing. So if you maybe are stuck for an idea of like how to move and anything we do later on in class, you can always take a look at a variation someone else is doing and be like, oh, that's cool, I'll try that. I do that all the time. It's not copying, it's taking inspiration from someone else, because one thing someone does in their body will never be the same as what it looks like in your body. Take a few more slow ones and then come back to a neutral spine. We'll all meet here and notice what your spine feels like. It probably feels super open. You might be sweating even more. And then flip your wrists around 180 degrees. And if that feels like a lot, you can just flip them out 90. So either your fingertips are out from either side of the mat, or their fingertips are facing back towards your knees. Slight bend in your elbows, and then take circles with your hips to the right. And in the beginning, these can be small. Your head can get involved. You can take circles with it too, or shake it out. As long as your head doesn't stay like tucked in looking behind you, you can do anything with it. That's just kind of a default pose our head goes into because it's kind of the pose we use when we're on our phones. So we try to not do that in yoga when we're not on our phone. Keep going. Slight bend in your elbows. Your elbows are imagining that they're pulling apart from one another as if there's a string connecting them. And you're playing tug of war with your hands and your arms. Weight is still in the thumb knuckle side of the hand, which is really hard here. I always find myself sinking onto my pinkies, but really try to see if you can get more of the weight in your thumbs. And then see if the circles can naturally get bigger just by bringing more movement into your hips. Great. And I don't know what song is playing for you right now, but you can always move to the beat of the music or the beat of whatever is playing around you. Maybe a siren from a street. And then take circles to the left. And as you keep moving more and more, feel free to see where your body takes you. And without second guessing it, just try it. You can add some cat and cow movement into this. You can add your head even more. You can always close your eyes. I really like doing that in these types of things. And find your breath again. And if you notice that your hands start to get sloppy because we do something so long, pause and fix them. Even if something gets sloppy, like a room in your house, you don't just leave it sloppy forever, you eventually clean it. So just like with our houses, if we like to think of our body as a house, we want to get everything all cleaned up and pristine as much as it can be. Take one more circle to the left, come back to your neutral spine, and then place your hands back down the normal way. But what is normal? Your fingers are facing forward away from you. Come back, let your hands ground into the floor or mat or grass beneath you. And then lean back onto your knees for a second, and then fist bump your hands together and place that underneath your shoulders. So this is another way to open the wrists. So we're giving ourselves new wrists by doing all these cats and cows, and then you can rock yourself forward and back. Well, so the first thing we did was cats and cows. These are just wrists and all four variations that we like to use to open up our wrists and give them a different way of moving than the normal texting or typing positions they're in. Gaze is still down and out. Notice what the tops of the feet are doing. Can you feel all 10 toes pressing down evenly on the ground? Cool. And see if you can straighten your elbows a little bit more. If they're bent, great, but just notice what it feels like if you try to straighten. The fists of your hands might come apart, which is always interesting to see how that's all connected. Take a few more, and I know we're staying in things a little bit longer, but it's always good for us. And then place your hands back down to a normal all fours. Let everything settle. So after we do a bunch of effort, it's always nice to take a moment to let everything settle. Take another breath. Just being here. And then begin to bring your knees together. And Maddie, you might not want to do this one because you've already kind of done this to yourself, but we're coming into toe breaker. So Maddie, feel free to take a child's pose or something, but tuck your toes under you and then sit on your heels. And if this feels like a lot, and I know I forgot to say this in the beginning, if you have blocks or books that you can use as like yoga blocks, that might be nice. But if this feels like a lot, you can place a block or a book underneath your knees, and that kind of loosens what's happening under here. Untuck your pinky toes, and then bring your eyes to a close. Hands can come face down on your thighs. And imagine there's a golden thread coming straight down from the universe to the middle of the crown of your head, going straight in the middle of your body, your spit, your third, your implicit line, and then straight down in between your legs. So you're on one long line from the earth to the universe above you. Listening to your breath, listening to the music. Take one more breath here. Then you can open your eyes, place your hands down, untuck your toes, still try not to like shake anything out, sit back on your heels, place your fingertips to either side, or if you have blocks, you can place them on blocks, and then lift up your knees a little bit, just opening the other side of your ankles. And this is really good if you walk. And I think all of us here walk. So if you don't, that's okay. But this is really good for your feet. Anytime you walk or run or use your feet, these two things kind of give us new feet. So we're giving ourselves new wrists and hands with all of those different variations we just did. We're giving ourselves new feet now, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. Take one more and then come back to your all fours position. And we're gonna do one more thing, which I really like, but is different. So you might not like it, and that's okay. So lean back onto your knees once again, interlace your hands, and then press that down underneath your arms. So my shoulders are still over my wrists, which is good. And then if this feels nice, or if you want to stay here, you can just take circles with your hips, kind of like you're hula hooping or something, not the same circles that we were taking before. Just take some circles to the right. And if you want to try one more thing, you can flip your hands around so that your thumbs are then facing your knees instead of the other way around. So it kind of looks like this, and then you go like that. So it might, if it feels like a lot, feel free to just stay in the first variation, especially if this is your first time doing it. And then take circles to the hips to the left. And the goal here, and my wrists are not doing this, is to have the underbelly of the wrist, I don't know if that's what that's called, like parallel to the right and left sides of your mat. Mine are kind of on a diagonal, which just means I have a little bit more work to do. Nobody's perfect, and we're all looking for ways to improve. Take one more breath, slight bend in your elbows still. And then now, I promise you're done with these weird wrist things. Place your hands under your shoulders, come back to your all fours, and let all of that just settle down. As much surface area as possible on your hands pressing down and your feet pressing down. Place your hands about a palm print in front of where they are. Tuck the toes, lift the knees, and we're back into our downward facing dog. You thought it was over. But notice if your feet or hands feel different. Do you feel like you have a little bit more grip on what's beneath you? You can still take some pedals, and then eventually find yourself in that visible stillness, bending the knees, sticking the butt up, arms wrapping in towards your heart, weight more down through the thumb knuckle side of the hand. But you feel every part of the hand pressing down, energy shooting out through the heels. Take one more big deep breath here. And then on your next inhale, you're gonna come forward into that plank again, but then come into a tuck-toed up dog. So I just moved myself from being in a 60-degree angle to a 90-degree angle to a 120-degree angle, and then bend the knees and stick the butt up. And then take that at your own pace. I feel like going slow, like I'm a little slow wave in a babbling brook, but if you're craving some more fast movement to get into these up dogs, feel free to go faster, and feel free to have your head gaze up towards the ceiling or the sky to really give that button, if we're talking in music words, to the end of the pose, or the icing on the cake is being able to look up and finish that 120-degree angle. Still wrap the armpits in towards the heart. And you can also try this on fingertips. So you can come up onto your fingertips and try this, or you can place your hands on blocks. I can show you what that looks like if you want to try that too. And we're still here. Part of Katona is really all about repetition. So here we are, repeating ourselves. Cool. Take one more, and then meet back in our dog. I just did something weird, and that's okay. Great, so we're in our dog, the last dog of this opening sequence of dogness. And then begin to walk your feet forward, up to your hands, coming into a forward fold at the front of your mat. Feet or hips width distance. You can measure that out by putting two arches in between, or two wrists in between your arches. And then let your head just drop. So there's a magnet from the top of the head, the crown of the head, to the floor. And I love to sway here. So you can just sway from side to side and make sure you have a bend in your knees. I don't think I ever do a forward fold anymore without a bend in my knees. So when people say they aren't flexible and they can't do yoga, it's a myth, because all you need to do is bend your knees and then everything is possible. You can find your eyes come to a close here. And take a few audible exhales. If you find yourself yawning, cool. If you want to really just let everything go with an exhale to kind of signify that that first part of class is over, I like to do that. It's good to know that we're not going to do that stuff again today. And then interlace your hands at the base of your neck and then wrap your elbows in towards your face and let everything just tuck in. So you're a turtle in its shell, just letting everything come in and find your breath. And once again, if you're like, Dana, I don't want to do this anymore, I support you and you can take a break and do something else. Yoga is just, each of these classes are just like a guideline of something that you could do. So if you ever want to go rogue and do something else, that's always supported. On your next inhale, begin to roll yourself up to stand, keeping your hands and elbows where they are, rolling, rolling, rolling as slow as you can, stacking vertebra on top of vertebra. And then once you get to the top, you can let your elbows open like a flower blooming and your head fall back into your hands. I still have a slight bend in my knees, slight arch in the upper back, and then let that go. And then my favorite thing I do every class is we can have an elongated shakeout moment. So shake out your hands, shake out your feet, shake out your legs, shake out your head. You can dance around to whatever song is playing, but really let the energy or frustration or joy or anything that happened before this, just let it go, move it around, and then find yourself standing, hip width distance. You can fidget or adjust your clothing. Find your feet underneath your hips, slight bend in the knees, roll your shoulders down and back, palms are facing forward, coming into mountain pose, Tadasana, and bring your eyes to a close again. So we'll stay here for a few breaths, just coming into a little standing intermission of a meditation. And notice how your feet are pressing on the floor. So you can try rocking forward, more onto the toes, maybe the heels lift up, rocking back onto the heels, maybe the toes lift up, and then rocking right and left until you find that midpoint of your foot where everything is standing on top of. So you have a diagonal line from your right big toe to the outer right heel, and a diagonal line from the right pinky toe to the inner right heel, and your foot is kind of sucking up right from the middle to hold you up and right in the middle of your arch. Same thing on the other side, a diagonal from the left big toe to the outer left heel, and the left pinky toe to the inner left heel. And then it's all coming up. Your feet are all fully on the ground, reaching up through the middle. Shoulders can roll down and back again. Relax your jaw, relax your forehead. Find that invisible golden thread from the universe down through the crown of your head, down through the implicit middle line of your body, and down right in between your legs into the earth below. Standing on one long line, the most you've ever thought about standing. Take one more breath and then open your eyes. Inhale, lift the arms up, press palms together overhead. Exhale, forward fold. From there, you can step, hop, tiptoe yourself back into a downward facing dog, but only be here for a hot second, so don't worry. Inhale, lift the right leg up, down dog split, toes facing down, left knee is still bent, and then bring your right foot to your right thumb. Place your back knee down, untuck the back toe, coming into Anjanae Asana. Walk the arms a little bit forward. See if you can find a connection between your right armpit and your right knee. Right knee has a 90-degree angle with the floor, and then arms come forward, out, and up. So we have a nice angle from this top knee all the way to the back foot. Whole top of the back foot is pressing down, pressing the hips forward. And then just like we did in the forward fold, you can interlace your hands behind your neck. Bring your elbows in, and then see if you can lift yourself up, and that allows you to go a little bit back in a slight back bend. Keep breathing, pressing the hips forward, noticing that your hips are hopefully in the same line, 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock on a clock face. Take one more breath here, and then reach your arms back up, place your fingertips back down, and then we'll take this little flow that I like to do all the time. So you're gonna inhale, lift the right toes up, begin to bend more into the back leg, runner stretch, exhale, low lunge. Inhale, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, begin to straighten the front leg, exhale, low lunge. So inhale and exhale at your own pace. It's your practice, it's your breath. But as you do this, since it's a simple movement, it's easy for our minds to wander, but it's easy for our minds to wander at any point in class. So try to see if you can do this movement and think about your breath and each pose with what I am going to name, don't know if this is scientific or not, but single complete attention. I was reading a book, which I will talk about at the end of class again, and there was a woman in tech named Linda Stone who worked for Apple and Microsoft in the 1990s and 80s. And yes, we are still here and we're still going. Feel free to pause at any moment if there's something that you like about one of these poses and want to move around. But Linda Stone was in tech, Apple, Microsoft recap, and she was noticing how everyone was starting to do things with what she dubbed continuous partial attention. And the way that I like to think about that is we're checking our email, we're checking Slack while we're in a Zoom meeting, while potentially doing another little task at the same time. You're still kind of paying attention to that Zoom meeting, but you don't have single complete attention on that one thing. Part two, on the other side. Come back into your low lunge, tuck the back toe, lift the back knee, step yourself back into your downward facing dog. Inhale, lift the left leg up, down dog split. Exhale, come into your Anjanae Asana on the left side. I won't keep you in suspense. So once we get into our Anjanae, find your measure, walk your arms out, reach them forward, out, and up. So this term, continuous partial attention, really resonated with me because I think I do that probably in every single Zoom meeting that I'm in. No one I'm on Zoom meetings with for work is on this call, so that's okay. I don't need to know, but they're probably doing it too. I don't know about you. So one thing that I've tried to do, and yoga really helps with this, because when we combine our mind, body, breath and movement, we're really focused on doing this one specific act of doing this Anjanae Asana while listening to my voice. So my voice and this movement is distracting us from doing anything else with our brains. And you can interlace your hands behind your neck again and bring your elbows up towards the sky a little. And that's really nice because it's kind of a socially acceptable way to find those moments of complete singular attention. We're so used to this continuous partial attention. So for the rest of class, if you can think of everything that you're doing with this single complete attention thing, listening to your breath is a great way to find that. And it'll be interesting to see how you can also find those moments in other parts of your daily life. Reach the arms up, place your fingertips down, and then come into that flow again. Inhale, runner stretch, lift the left toes. Exhale, low lunge. Inhale, straighten the legs. Exhale, low lunge. And just keep going. And keep breathing. Inhaling one movement, exhaling the other. Gaze is down and out in front of you if you started looking towards yourself. And let your breath be audible. So you have something to listen to. Take a few more. Gazing down and out. Doesn't matter how straight or bent your legs are. It only matters that it feels good for you, and feel free to pause and sway at any time. Take one more. Come back into your low lunge, tuck the back toe, lift the back knee, and come into your downward facing dog. Cool. One more time. Inhale, lift the right leg up, down dog split. Bend the knee, bring it to your right thumb. This time, bring the sole of the back foot down and take it about 30 centimeters or 1 foot in towards you. And then if you have a block or a book, you can grab that, place it on the highest height outside your right foot. And we're coming into triangle pose. If you know your way to triangle, feel free to go. And then keeping your hips square, lift the left arm up and then lift your torso to the left side. And find your breath here, shoulders down and back. And if you don't have a block, you can place your hand gently on your shin. My front knee is still slightly bent, so really don't hesitate to bend those knees. It's great. Find your single complete attention in your triangle pose. One more breath. Exhale, swim the left arm down. Place it, the palm down, bend into your right knee, come back into your low lunge, and then lift the right arm up. So we just did a nice little circular loop. Still have a 90-degree angle in your front leg. Pull the hips back. Everyone looks good. And then exhale, swim the right arm back down. Step yourself back into a plank pose. So we haven't been here in a while. Find your plank pose. Take 2 breaths here. Gaze is still down and out. And after your second exhale, you can begin to lower your body down onto the ground, elbows in towards your chest, coming down onto the mat. Forehead comes down onto a palm pillow. Great. From there, keeping your elbows where they are, just bring your forearms out. You may have had to move them a little bit, and that's okay. But we're coming into like a nice figure that looks like a goalpost or just like 2 L's on either side. And place your right cheek down, right ear. Place your left hand back underneath your shoulder and then roll over onto the right. Ooh, I felt a nice crack in my back. You can step your left foot behind you, or you can leave it on top of your right leg, just opening up the shoulder a little bit. We did a bunch of shoulder work, as they say, with our down dog, and used our legs a lot. So nice to open something up in a different way. And this is really nice because the armpits are a portal to our lungs. And opening up our armpits and encouraging our shoulder to move backwards gives us more space in our lungs to breathe. Come back to center and switch over onto the other side. L shape with the left hand, right hand under the right shoulder. Roll over onto the left side. Same thing. And this side might feel different. No two sides are the same. And you can take a few little rocks forward and back if that feels nice too. Take one more breath here. Opening up the left lung, which is inherently smaller because our heart is also on the left side. Coming back to center. And then reach both arms straight out in front of you. So we kind of look like we're Superman flying. And as you inhale, keeping the tops of the feet down, inhale, reach out with your arms. Your thumbs can face towards the sky. And then with doing that, lift your chest and neck up and head, because your head is connected to your neck. You're looking down and out. Take one more breath here. And then come back down. And now zip your legs together, and we'll try it all together. So inhale, arms shoot forward, forward, forward. So they have nowhere to go but up. Chest, neck, head comes up, and then legs come up. So we're in this nice little Shalabhasana, long crescent moon, little arch in the back. And then come back down. Great. From there, place your hands underneath your shoulders, and we're gonna do something so fun. Come back into a wide knee child's pose. So knees as wide as the mat, big toes touching, and let yourself really just rest and relax in your child's pose for a second. Take 3 deep breaths here. And if you wanna stay here for longer, you can. Feel free to widen out your arms so they're as wide as your mat, so you take up more and more space. Yoga is all about creating space. And after your 3rd breath, you guessed it, we're coming back into our downward facing dog. Pedaling it out, find your amazing dog after what we've already done. Inhale, lift the left leg up, down dog split. Bring your left foot to your left thumb. Find a block or book or just your hand. Hop your right foot in a little bit. Hips are square. And come into triangle on the left side. Hips kind of wrapping down and in. Lift the right arm up. Very nice. Turning the head up if that feels good. And notice how much weight you have wherever your bottom hand is. In theory, you should be able to lift it off and stay where you are. You can always try that and see what happens. Take 1 or 2 more breaths. And when you're ready, swim the right hand back down, bending into the left knee. Come back into your low lunge and twist. Open to the left side, coming into this twisted lunge. Shoulders down and back. Your back heel is lifting up towards the skies if it's pressing against a wall. In this lunge, swim the left hand back down, and this time just come back to your downward facing dog. One more fun thing in our triangle poses. Inhale, this time just step your right foot to your right thumb, and then hop the back foot in. Left toes are facing diagonally up towards the mat. Begin to straighten both legs, keeping the left fingertips on the mat, but your legs don't need to be fully straightened, mine are not. Lift your right arm up. And this might feel a little bit weird because now we're doing a closed twist instead of an open twist. But if you want to try something else, you can find your block again, place it on the outside of the right foot, place your left hand on the block. I like placing my right hand on my hip for this and pulling it back and then twisting open. Ooh, it's an interesting twist, but something nice to try. Try wrapping your right hip back still. Take 1 or 2 more breaths. Both of my legs are still slightly bent. I have energy through all parts of both feet. And then swim the right hand back down and step yourself back to your downward facing dog. If you want to come to an up dog and then a down dog again, go for it, just to rinse it out. And then we'll come to the other side. Setting yourself up in triangle. I didn't say this, but you want your legs more on train tracks rather than on a tightrope. So if you feel like you need to widen them to feel more stable, go for it. Place your fingertips down and see what it's like to twist open to the left. My left hip is always and will always be tighter than my right. So this feels like a ton to me. So I don't even need to do the thing where I go over my left foot, but I will show you what it looks like. Place the block on the outside of the left foot, place your right hand on top of it, and then lift up. Yeah. Oof. A lot of stuff happening internally. Great. Take 1 or 2 more breaths. Notice that you're pressing down with the back of the right foot, and then swim yourself back down and come back into your down dog. And now we get to come into a nice, lovely hip opening pose. Inhale, lift the right leg up, bend the knee, open up the hip, take some circles, or just shake it out. We're coming into pigeon. So bring your right foot or right knee behind your right wrist. Your foot can kind of come on a diagonal. I'm going to use my sweatshirt, but if you have any pillow or any sweatshirt or anything nearby, place it under your hips. Great. You're sitting super tall. And then if you have blocks, you can create some scaffolding for yourself. I like putting one on the lowest height in line with my front leg, and then another one on the lowest height for my head. But also if you don't have any props at all, you can just come into pigeon pose and let yourself come down. And take a big sigh. I don't know about you, that is what I wanted to do. So without second guessing, just listen to what your body wants and go for it. As you're here, you can press down with the right shin and then imagine that you're pulling your right hip back a little bit, and that'll help keep your hips square. It also will give you more of a sensation in your right hip. Keep breathing here. I'm not going to cue any variations, but if you're trying to, if you want to do something else and you know something that feels good in your body, feel free to try something new. But it's nice to just be in pigeon for a little bit too. We did a lot of doing, especially in the beginning. So kudos to all of you for doing it and hanging in there and still being here. You made it to pigeon. And last thing here, once again, imagining those diagonals. You have one going from your right shoulder down to your left hip and your left shoulder down to your right hip, allowing your entire back to spread out like you just poured pancake batter onto a pan and you're watching it spread out on it. Take one last breath And then begin to walk yourself back up. And however feels nice, I'm going to come through a down dog because you know I love a down dog. So I'm just going to go back into my down dog, pedal it out for a little bit. Notice how my hips feel different. And then come on to the other side. Lifting the left leg up, bend the knee, open up the hip, take any movement, keeping the bottom leg bent. But if you just want to come on to the other side of pigeon, you can just do that too, however feels good for you. Then I'm going to move around my props, find my sweatshirt underneath my hips, so I'm right on top of it. Have my block set up too, but if you don't have them, just sit up super tall and then walk yourself out. I like creating a diamond for my arms, so my elbows are out to either side because that really relaxes the shoulders and you're not using any weight to hold yourself up. You're just using the ground and gravity to let you be there. And find your breath again. Notice what it's like to be here with your single, complete attention. I should trademark that. And same thing on this side. Pressing down with the left shin, beginning to pull your left hip back. And also, I forgot to say this on the first side, if this is not feeling good for you, you can always come lie on your back and come into a figure 4 position instead. If someone wants to do that, I can just show what that looks like. Crossing one over making a figure 4 shape with one ankle on top of one thigh. Take a few more breaths in your pigeon. Notice where your mind may be wandering off to. Bring it back to your breath. Take one more deep breath into the low belly. And then begin to walk yourself back up. Come back into your last downward facing dog. We're set for dogs for the rest of our life, it seems. Pedal it out, do anything that feels good. And then place your knees down, sit down to either side, and come down onto your back. Once you get there, you could hug both knees in towards your chest. Just give yourself a little bit of a rock. And then you can either come into happy baby, or if you know what plow pose is, I'll cue it, but don't feel obliged to come into a plow pose. So if you're taking happy baby, you can either grab fur behind the knees, shins, ankles, heels, outsides of the feet, and pull your knees in towards your armpits. And then find some breath, just opening the hips one more time. You can rock from right to left. Or if you want to try plow, I like getting into it. My knees are bent. My feet are underneath my knees-ish. And then kind of using my hands, I kind of hoist myself up like this. My knees are bent, they bend to my ears. And then I reach my arms up and behind myself, and the tops of my feet end up being in my hands. So sometimes I might feel like I'm falling forward, and you can grab whatever you used in pigeon to kind of give yourself a kickstand or something that doesn't allow you to fall forward. But if you're like, Dana, I'm done with doing all this weird stuff that you're telling us to do today, you can just come into happy baby. If you're in your plow, stay in your plow for as many breaths as you are old. Take one more breath in your happy baby, and then bring your legs straight out into Shavasana. And let everything go. Imagine that you're plopping down on your bed at the end of a long day and just breathe. You've done so much stuff for your body today. You should be so, so proud. Everything you've done has been amazing, regardless of what it looked like, what it felt like. You did it. So now enjoy lying on your back if you want, or if you're still in your plow. And if neither of those options are good, you're always welcome to just take a comfortable seat. Cool. And so the book I quoted before was Thrive by Ariana Huffington, who don't know if you've read this book, but I highly recommend. I really like it. And as we lie here in our final resting pose, I want to read another little passage from it that we can think about going forward in our lives. So, what study after study shows is that meditation and mindfulness training profoundly affect every aspect of our lives: our bodies, our minds, our physical health, and our emotional and spiritual well-being. It's not quite the fountain of youth, but it's pretty close. When you consider all the benefits of meditation, and more are being found every day, it's not an exaggeration to call meditation a miracle drug. But how does it do all this? It's not just about distracting us from pain and stress. It literally changes us at the genetic level. Researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital, Beth Israel Deaconess, pronunciation, Medical Center, and Harvard Medical School found that the relaxation response, the state of calm produced by meditation, yoga, us, yay, and breathing exercises, actually switched on genes that are related to augmenting our immune system, reducing inflammation, and fighting a range of conditions from arthritis to high blood pressure to diabetes. So with all these results, it's no surprise that, according to another study, meditation correlates to reduced yearly medical costs. It also physically changes our brains. One study found that meditation can actually increase the thickness of the prefrontal cortex region of the brain and slow the thinning that occurs as we age, impacting cognitive functions such as sensory and emotional processing. Dr. Richard Davidson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin, and a leading scholar on the impact of contemplative practices on the brain, used MRIs to study the brain activity of Tibetan monks. The studies, as Davidson put it, have illuminated for the first time the further reaches of human plasticity and transformation. He calls meditation mental training. What we found is that the trained mind or brain is physically different from the untrained one. And when our brain is changed, so is the way in which we experience the world. Meditation is not just blissing out under a mango tree, says French Buddhist monk and molecular geneticist Mathieu Ricard. It completely changes your brain and therefore changes who you are. So I'll let that sit for a second. You can begin to bring some wiggles back into your fingers and your toes. letting the movement move up the body, wherever you are. I hope you came out of your cloud pose. Feeling that. All over onto either side, coming into a fetal position. Take a few breaths there, but however long you want to be there. I taught yoga to someone yesterday, and I was like, stay in your fetal position for like 30 seconds. And they started counting to 30. And I was like, okay, well, you can stay here as long as you want. And they were like, oh, I'll stay here for 2 hours. And I was like, okay, enjoy, goodbye. So they stayed there for 2 hours. So if you want to stay here for 2 hours, be my guest. But otherwise, you can come up and sit in a comfortable seat. Eyes can stay closed wherever you are. Hands can come face up on your lap or your thighs or your knees if you're sitting cross-legged. And once again, just relish in the fact of all the good that you just did today for your mind and your body to physically change your brain and change who you are. It's always nice to have science back up what we feel and how yoga makes a lot of us feel. So be proud and happy and gracious to yourselves for spending the time and doing all of this for your mind, body, and breath. It makes you a better person, which in turn makes the world a better place. You can bring your hands to press at the center of your chest, and we'll end practice with a final bow. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.